So, I also wanted to talk this week about something that many of you, I'm sure almost everybody in the class, will actually relate to, and that is to define whether or not your family belongs to one of two patterns of cultural identity. So, the first pattern is the melting pot, and that is where your family tries to blend in, to become part of the larger society, um, things like that. Or do you value cultural pluralism, which is cultural pluralism is that I value the identity you have, the language that you have, the traditions you have, etc. And then when you move to another culture, you add that one in, thus becoming bicultural, tricultural, etc. So for the purposes of this class, though, we're going to use type A and type B. And type A are the families who, when they give birth to a child, they say, okay, you are you. We love you. You can be anything you want to be. Marry anyone you want to marry. Love anyone you want to love. Oh, what a world it could be. And then the second pattern family is the one where you are not as important as the group. So we really need you to learn and make sure that you remember the language of the culture, marry into the culture, follow the rules of the culture, and be obedient. And the group is much stronger because of the adherence of everybody to that, subscribing to that understanding that the group is much more important. I can tell you that for me personally, coming from an Orthodox Jewish background, the things that were stressed the most in our house was the cultural obedience. Marry a Jew, keep the Sabbath, keep all the commandments, dress a certain way, eat only kosher food, live only in certain geographical areas where there were other Orthodox Jews. And there are people who adhere to it even more stringently than my family did. And if you strayed, the Hebrew word was off, well, in English we say off the derech, that they were off the path, because you got to get back on that path of following what everybody else is doing. And in fact, there are certain communities, especially Orthodox Jewish communities, that if you walk there on a holiday or a Saturday, you'll see everybody wearing the same thing. I mean, there are some cultural groups, take extreme Muslims, for example, but there are a lot of groups in the world who threaten, intimidate, and the obedience is much more important than the individual. Interesting to see what you all have to say. Is it one or the other? Is there a middle ground? So that's going to be our conversation for this week. Make sure you go to the discussion.